What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today it's time to look at a fairly teeny tiny transformer. We have seen Private Mudslinger, and it has been brought to us by the lovely folks over at Pojo.com. Pojo is a website I've been using personally for many years, because they used to do really cool Transformers articles back in the day, unless I'm thinking of a different website, and I'm fairly sure I'm not. Cool to see them chucking out some Transformers content. There is a link to the article in the description, and you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Whenever any of these people are giving out these spoilers from Transformers, let's give them some love, let's show some love, and hopefully Wizards will keep doing this in the future. I adore community reveals. I want to see them keep going. Link in the description. So Private Mudslinger then, it's a 5 cost. That is a teeny tiny Transformer. I know we occasionally get 4 cost special Transformers, but generally speaking, this is as teeny tiny as Transformers get. So they're very cheap, and this is a very good thing. Of course, because it's a 5 cost character, it is not going to have particularly amazing stats, and it doesn't. But then again, attack of 2 or 3, we'd expect 4 on an 8 cost, so this isn't bad. Health of 7 is admittedly terrible, and defense of 1 is very low. I mean, if we compare this to RC, we've got lower health and same defense, but we do have higher attack, which is quite nice. And if we go ahead and compare this to Flame War, to be fair, Flame War's got better health, same defense, better attack, so maybe Flame War is a fair bit better. But even so, the stats are bad here. But in the context of, oh, hang on a second, it's a 5 cost, they really aren't that bad. And then, of course, we've got the skills. And it's got one of these new tap skills when you are in bot mode. So instead of using it to attack, you can tap it, that's what the little arrow means, and scrap a card with a black icon from your hand, and then you move 1 damage counter from one of your characters to an enemy. That's kind of cool. That is, in fact, the ability version of Fling. Fling just was a card which came out in Wave 2 that reads, move 1 damage counter from one of your characters to an enemy. But that was a really good card because it didn't have any battle icons. And as I've explained in a few videos, battle icons are the great equalizers. So this is cool. This is a really nice ability. Now, the downside here is it's a tap ability, which means you can use it, you tap the character, but it means that at some point you're going to go, oh, do I have any characters left with which to attack? And go, oh no, they're all tapped. So you're kind of giving up an attack to do this. And to be fair, when we're looking at the stats, it is attack which is the best stat, and we can do better, more on that in a moment. Now, we did receive some rulings about tap abilities officially recently. This is in addition to the usual stuff. So on your turn, you get to flip a Transformer, play an action, play an upgrade, and then at the end, you can attack. Well, these tap abilities work in addition to everything else. So now it is flip a Transformer, attach an upgrade, play an action, use a flip ability attack. And it has been confirmed you can do this on turn 1, when you would only usually be able to use an action or an upgrade. You can also use a tap ability, which means, alright, you might be giving up an attack in the long run, but certainly on the first turn, when you are really restricted in what you're allowed to do, this can be really fun. Of course, on the first turn, there's a very good chance you're not going to have any damage on you anyway, but if you do, there is an option. There is a little bit of healing going on here, but it's not just healing. It is moving damage from you to an enemy. And if we look at the wording, very importantly, it moves the damage counter from one of your characters to an enemy. It does not have to be from Private Mudslinger. It can be from any of your characters. Maybe that's that 1 damage, which is the difference between your character going down and your character not going down. Maybe it is the thing that keeps your character on the field for another turn. In which case, that's pretty gosh darn great. Or maybe it's the thing that brings your opponent's character in range of being KO'd. In which case, That's great. I mean, we've seen this as an attack ability in Wave 1 on Dinobot Swoop. And frankly, Dinobot Swoop has seen quite a lot of play. It's clearly a good ability. The only real question you have to ask yourself here, and it is a legitimate question, are you willing to give up an attack? Because the other thing I should mention here, Dinobot Swoop is when you flip, but it's only from Dinobot Swoop. You cannot move from another character, so this is actually better than Dinobot Swoop. It is just fling. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. This is a great ability, as long as you're willing to give up that attack because you are tapping it with the ability rather than tapping it when you attack. It's really good. And then, of course, we flip it over into alt mode, or indeed start the game in alt mode. This has stealth while untapped. So when you're untapped, enemy characters must attack your other characters if able. As soon as you're tapped, all bets are off. But for as long as you are untapped, your opponent has to go after other characters. So it's the beginning of your game. All of your characters are untapped. Generally speaking, your opponent should have an open choice of who they attack, but no. You've got stealth. Your opponent has to leave you alone, and that's what stealth does. It just gives you that protection. And what's kind of cool here is that this is also a card that we got in Wave 2. It's Stealthiness. Stealthiness being an upgrade utility that gives you stealth. Now, that's stealth all the time rather than just while untapped, but also your opponent could play something like a Vaporize to remove it, so, you know, pros and cons, ladies and gentlemen. Pros and cons. And what this really does is it keeps it on the field. It keeps it there just in case. It keeps it there until you're ready to go. And that's nice. Because the other thing is, if this is the last thing you attack with, then your opponent has very limited time in which they can attack it. Now, if all of your characters are tapped but your opponent's got some untapped characters, then they will be able to go after it because it will be tapped and then they'll be fine. But you can make this the last character that's tapped, at which point you can protect it for the majority of the time. But then, of course, you go back to, well, hang on a second. Didn't we have a really good skill in bot mode which relied on us tapping Private Mudslinger? And that's the trade-off here. You've got to tap to use the ability, but as soon as you tap, you lose stealth. Of course, as soon as you flip into bot mode, you lose stealth. But given that your stats are objectively better in alt mode, they're exactly the same, but you get +1 attack. And given that you've got stealth, unless you really don't want to protect it, there is no reason to flip into bot mode until you're ready to use that ability. There just isn't. Now, if we look at the designations here, you are off-road patrol. That means nothing at the moment. There is no significance to that in the trading card game at all. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be any cards in Wave 3 that give bonuses to off-road patrol, but it is to say that there are none that have currently been revealed. But you are a melee character, and I've said this time and time again. I like melee characters because in set 1 we had a couple of phenomenal cards. We had Power Sword, which gives you bold free, and Body Armor that gives you tough free. And you are a melee character in either mode, so you can attach them in either mode. Now, there's the odd thing like Thundercracker that will do cheeky damage, but only to a melee character. Well, if they do, they do. You've still got these really good upgrades, and that makes me a big fan of them. And then you're a truck. Trucks haven't been getting very much love in the trading card game up to now. As I've mentioned in a couple of videos, you got Team Up Tactics, which basically lets you heal 2 from a truck. And you've got Cargo Trailer, which really boosts your attack when you attach 3 of them. And even though you can put 3 in the utility slot, you've got to get 3 in the utility slot before your 7 health, 1 defense character gets KO'd. It's not exactly that easy, ladies and gentlemen. One of the best things about this is that it's a 5 cost, which means that when you're building your deck, you've got a bunch of options. Sure, you could play something like RC or Flame War instead, and Lord knows we've got about 1 billion 5 cost combiners. But it's only a 5 cost, so it can go into a whole bunch of decks. It's a melee character, which is a great designation. It's got stealth, so you can keep it on the field for a little while. And it's got that ability. Moving damage counters is good. Now, before we finish, just a quick clarification, reminder, whatever you want to call it. You only get the ability in bot mode if you tap and discard a black icon card from your hand. Now, we've only seen a couple of these so far. My favourite of which is Erratic Energy Grenade. It's a really fun one that basically when you're KO'd, you do 2 damage to each enemy. I wouldn't be averse to putting that on Private Mudslinger and then tapping yourself and going, come at me, bro, and take all of that damage. It could be fun. But the point is, you can only use this if you tap it and discard a black icon card. So it's not just are you willing to give up the attack you would otherwise get, but it's also, do you have a card and are you willing to get rid of it? So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Private Mudslinger looks like a lot of fun and it's cheap enough. I think we can find some uses for it. Huge shout out to the lovely folks over at Pojo.com. Do remember to follow that link in the description and go check them out. And then, of course, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about games like Transformers, but also a whole bunch of others. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.